streaming.
There you go.
And we are now on Facebook on Just Talking. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I know it's been a couple of weeks of craziness. We've got Heather in the midst of moving. We've got Aisha having other commitments, and all you had was me last week just walking around a farm. So I did just get back from being away. Today, though, we're very excited. I mean, you know, the thing is, when you're passionate about stuff, welcome Heather Lacey, by the way. Heather, yay.
Hey.
When we're passionate about stuff that other people don't necessarily normalize, sometimes that can be taken in the wrong way. So how do I word this a little better? There's a lot of times in our life, especially over the pandemic, where our four-legged friends, or myself, I've always liked snakes, but horses, dogs, cats, gerbils, hamsters, all sentient beings have personality. They all bring something to our lives. And with the grief recovery method, part of what we would have always talked about, and I know Heather's as excited as I am, is that we would have pet loss as something that would be on our major graph, our major loss, but we didn't have the program available online. So we're so excited to be able to offer pet loss online through Zoom. It is also available in person. Either Heather or myself are available to do that in person. But the great part about the pet loss program is that a lot of times, if you don't have a pet, you don't get what it's like to have a pet. If you don't have a pet, especially a cat or a dog that sleeps in your bed every night or does something that endears you to them on a daily basis, seems to know when you're feeling low, is unconditional, well, as much as a cat can be, and I'm a cat person, then their loss or rehoming or anything to do with the end of that relationship, just like with the grief recovery method, can be really hard to take. And so this pet loss program offers us a way to apply the grief recovery method to the animals that have been in our life, who have provided us emotional support and unconditional love and purrs and licks and tail wags. So that's my big introduction. Heather, welcome. Yeah. Share your little bit. I know you've been waiting for this for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the thing is about the pet loss program is that I think it's important people understand that it is the same method. It's there is not a change in the method itself. It's the presentation that's different. Because for most of us that have any kind of relationship with animals in our lives, it's called pet loss, but it is family. It's family loss. It's family member loss, right? Mm-hmm. It's a family member loss that is a little different than a human family member, but it is still a family member loss for anybody that has a close relationship with their animals in their life. So the program itself is the same. The method is the same that we do in the regular GRM classes. But this provides a format for people to specifically focus on the loss of their furry family members, because, or non-furry if you're reptiles, snakes. So to me, that's the upside of it, is that you've got a place where you can go to feel safe, to be able to talk about that and not feel that you shouldn't feel that way, because some people feel that they shouldn't be upset, that, you know, or as upset as they are, that kind of thing. The part about the pet loss program that does make me break my heart just a little bit is that it is separate, right? And that we still haven't gotten to a point where it can be completely accepted by society that those should just be major losses in our regular life and our regular process. So I understand the need to put it in a separate thing for some people, because it is someplace that people need to feel safe to talk about it. But I would love to be able to just put it into, and my biggest animal loss does show up on my regular program. The difference for this one will be that I will focus on a lot of pet loss from my side, but also just from other animals that I know in my life, right? That were connected in some fashion. As a kid growing up, there was a little girl across the street, and she always had a new puppy or a new cat or a new something, and it would be around for a few weeks and then it would disappear. And eventually mom and dad would eventually get another one, because she would ask for another one. But it was obvious mom and dad didn't want the animal. They got it to appease her, and then it would get lost. And it just, when you got old enough to understand, because I was a few years older than her, when you got old enough to understand what was happening, it just broke your heart. You're just, what's like, just don't get the animal, just don't. So things like that will go on to my process when I do the pet loss portion of things. But it is hard when you kind of like, you want it to just be normal, right? It should just be an accepted normal thing, but it's not really. It is within the circle of people I associate with, because most of the people I associate with are, animal loving people. So they get it. It's a family loss for them as well when a family pet member dies. But there are still a lot of people in society that just don't view that as an important loss. So.
Well, and I think the thing that I like about this, keeping this separate, because I agree, I talk about on my loss history graph, I talk about the first cat that we had, Alex, who ran away. He was a tomcat. He adopted us, and one day I brought home Queen Elizabeth was her name. We called her Liz. She had a good long life, 22 years. But she came, Alex didn't want any part of it, and he left one night. And that was just it. He just left. And the thing is that with animals, especially, that's usually as children, that's one of our first losses. That's one of our first emotional relationships that can end suddenly without, because I think that the thing that you talked about as well is we have a life expectancy for when we're getting animals. And I think if anything, sometimes when people look at animals as not sentient beings, and looking at the fact that when you are getting an animal, that's a cat, a 12 to 15 year commitment minimum. When you're getting a dog, again, depending on the breed, 12, and here's the thing. The animals are where we get the first, well, we'll replace the loss. We'll just get you another dog. Well, I can tell you, out of all the cats that have personally been in my life, they have all had their own personalities. They've had, oh my God, my cat Rambo, I will tell stories about this. And I'm actually, in a way, I'm looking forward to just doing my pets, because there have been many. And I love the fact, Heather, that you talked about somebody else that's an influence in our life. Like we had the Boydens across the street. They had goats in the backyard. They had ducks. They had like a whole bunch of different, and they were really one of the major influences on what got me into, I always loved animals, but really getting into the knowledge of animals, nature, any of that kind of stuff, and being aware and alert. So so there's other places that we can go where there's some sort of fur, feather, as a fur and feather, anybody fur and feather members when we were kids? I don't know if they still had that when you were in school, but these are all things. So I'm actually looking forward to it. It is included for sure on my losses, having to, and that's the thing. I had to give away Rambo. I had to rehome Rambo because I ended up traveling, being in 5 different countries. But I was moving into a place that didn't have animals. And that's a really hard thing to do when again, there's so many aspects that really involve all parts of our lives. But I think the thing that I like about this is that I get to honor them as an important part of my life in their particular area, right? In their, like, you know what, it really, like, giving away Rambo, like rehoming Rambo, was probably one of the most painful things I did in my life, because when I got him, I expected that to be a lifelong commitment for that cat. And it didn't, and I couldn't do that. But there's also I think it also gets to have us acknowledge our responsibilities as human owners too. So that's my 2 cents. That's why I'm excited, especially I know quite a few people that have had animals their whole life. And not like growing up on a farm or something where you might have a different relationship with animals, but growing up in the city or in a place where you're usually having domesticated somethings, right?
Yeah.
What do you
I agreed, and I think it is great that we're finally able to teach it online and to be able to do that. I'm looking forward to it for sure. It's definitely one of the main reasons I got involved with the grief recovery method, is that I wanted to be able to do that as part of my focus. But I think that's the thing, is that people sometimes look at it as just like the 2 or 3 pets they had in their life. But I think this gives us the opportunity to look beyond that and to look at, as you said, look at those goats across the street, look at the chickens, the roosters that I saw every summer up in Collingwood for 2 weeks that were 3 streets over, kind of thing, and we'd stop and say hello to them on the walk, right? Like all of those kind of things. You get a chance to look at all of that in your life, and those influences in your life, those animal influences that have happened, not just yours, because there is a sense of loss, as we've said, that change in a familiar pattern of behavior, right? Change in or loss of a familiar pattern of behavior. So when those goats stop being there, that's a change, that's a loss, right? There are a lot of those kind of things in our lives that we maybe haven't kind of acknowledged, and they become those little pebbles that go in the backpack, right? And the backpack full of pebbles is just as heavy as the backpack full of big rocks, right? The backpack is full no matter what it's full of. And sometimes it's good to just take out, handfuls of pebbles and great to take out the rocks and the boulders, but the handfuls of pebbles are good too, right? To get rid of. And I think this allows us to not only look at the major losses of our animal companions, but to look at those other losses of I don't want to say smaller losses, but those other losses of companions that have influenced us in our years of growing up and connecting with animals. And for some people, like, yes, the growing up in the city thing, but also for those people who do grow up on a farm and develop connections with those farm animals, right? Different type of connection for sure, potentially, but depending on what those animals are being raised for, totally different connection, but still a connection and still a loss when they're gone, and an important thing to acknowledge.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, I think that I think that's the interesting part is, for anybody, it's like any kind of anything. If you don't have any experience with it, you don't understand the impact they can have. Like,
right.
Rambo was so smart. I watched him open a window once. If I had not watched it with my own eyes, and we couldn't figure out why is it so drafty in here, and we're doing all the rest of this stuff. And it's just, well, he liked going outside, and he just went in and he opened up the window and got in there. And it's like, what? So, which is why he was named Rambo too. But it's like, so those stories are endearing, but unless you're around animal people, and again, we get back into the competition or the comparing. And I think that's the challenge sometimes, if you have somebody who's like, oh, my husband has died, my dog has died, and they might feel like those two losses aren't equal. And it's like, both of those can be your companion for a long period of time, right?
Yeah, they can both have a huge impact on you, right? So yeah, in terms of the loss can have it. I mean, the person and the animal can have a huge impact on your life, but the loss itself can have a huge impact on you.
And I remember like one time I was in New Orleans, and this woman's poem I read, and it's like, you have a really strong connection. And she goes, no, dogs. I've had dogs my whole life. And so she had never been in a serious romantic relationship or partnership like that, but she had always had a dog. Yeah. And it showed up in her poem. So that's a really interesting thing, right? And I guess we'll get to my last thoughts on this. Is that I know that in spiritual worlds, I always heard it said, because sometimes animals, they don't talk back, right? They just love you, and they just want to be part of your life. And so like when it comes to cats, yes, they're independent, but you still need to be home, and you still need to care for them and things like that. But it's like, it's been said that animals come in your life to hold space until you're ready for a human relationship, because it is a little deeper. And sometimes all of our relationships are different. All of our life stories are different. Maybe there's trust issues. Maybe that animal can be something even more trusting than a human, because, they can, even in their silliness, like, again, I look at Rambo. I think of Rambo. I think of Alex opening the door by himself. There's all these stories that come to heart, right? And so we want to be able to honor it. So that's my last 2 cents. But I'm so excited about being able to offer this and give people a space to talk animal love as much as they need to, right?
Exactly. Yes. To talk about that animal love and that animal loss, right? Because again, a lot of us are very good at talking about, even after our animal companions have died, we're very good about recalling stories about them, and very good about relating moments and funny things and that kind of thing. But we're less likely to acknowledge that they're gone, and to say, they're gone and it hurts, and they're gone and I miss them. Right? We'll talk about the crazy things that they did, but we may not say, and I miss seeing that, and I miss that, and I wish that they were still here to do that. We don't tend to go that extra step, because we shut, like we do with people, we shut down, right? We don't want to acknowledge that hurt, that pain. And I think this is great, because it does give us that forum to talk not just about the love we have for our pets, but how we feel having lost them.
Absolutely. And so we do have courses coming up. You can go to the griefrecoverymethod.com/Heather-Lacey or Gwenda-Lambert, and you can get a list of all of our grief recovery methods sessions that are coming up. We are starting our next 2 sessions of grief recovery coming up within the next couple of weeks. So look online for even if you're watching this after the fact, always just go to the griefrecoverymethod.com/Heather-Lacey, LACEY. I'll put the links in below here. And you can sign up, get in touch with us if you want to do one-on-one again, everything can be done one-on-one. We are going to be doing this online, but again, hopefully as things move forward and open up a little bit more, we can find a space to be able to do that in a group personal setting, because I think it's also important, no matter what we do, is to learn how to love and support and hold space for each other when we are expressing those emotions that are less than positive. I'll just leave that. So what do you think, Heather? Last words, I promise. This is it.
No, I think that's all great. And as you say, go and check out the website and find us there, and you will always find our upcoming classes listed there.
Exactly. Okay, well, thank you and good luck with your upcoming adventures. And
Yes.
we'll see you next week. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.